Good evening, I'm Tracy. Thank you for spending a little part of your day with me. I hope you're somewhere comfortable right now. Maybe you're lying in bed, maybe you're studying English, or maybe you're simply looking for a quiet voice to keep you company. Tonight, I'd like to tell you about my Monday. It wasn't exciting. Nothing dramatic happened. No big surprises. No life-changing moments. It was just an ordinary day. But sometimes, ordinary days tell us the most about who we are. So, let me begin. My alarm went off at 6:30 this morning. The sound wasn't loud. It wasn't annoying. In fact, it was a soft melody that I chose myself a few months ago. Back then, I thought a gentle alarm would help me wake up peacefully. I was wrong. When I heard it this morning, I didn't even open my eyes. Without thinking, I reached for my phone. My hand knew exactly where it was. Tap, snooze. 5 more minutes. That's what I told myself. Just 5. The room was quiet again. I could hear the fan spinning slowly above my head. Outside my window, birds had already started singing. Somewhere downstairs, a motorbike engine came to life. A neighbor opened a metal gate. The city was waking up, but I wasn't. 5 minutes passed. The alarm rang again. This time, I opened one eye. Just one. The sunlight was slipping through the small gap in my curtains. The sky looked clear. It was probably going to be a beautiful day. I stared at the ceiling. Do I really have to get up? No one answered, so I closed my eye again. The third alarm felt different, not because it sounded different, but because I suddenly remembered. Today was Monday. Somehow, that single thought made my bed feel even warmer. I finally sat up. My hair was a mess. My t-shirt was wrinkled. I looked at the clock. 6:58. Oops. I had promised myself I would wake up early enough to stretch, make breakfast, and maybe read a few pages of a book. Instead, I had spent almost 30 minutes negotiating with my alarm clock. I walked slowly to the bathroom. The floor felt cold under my feet. I splashed some water on my face. For a few seconds, I just stood there, looking at myself in the mirror. I didn't look terrible, just a little tired. The kind of tired that sleep doesn't always fix. Have you ever looked in the mirror and thought, I look fine, but I don't feel fine? That's how I felt this morning. Not sad, not sick, not angry, just heavy, as if my mind had been carrying something for days without telling me. I brushed my teeth, washed my face, tied my hair into a low ponytail. Nothing special. I've done the same routine hundreds of times, maybe thousands. Isn't it funny? We spend so much of our lives repeating the same small actions. Wake up, brush our teeth, get dressed, go to work, come home, sleep. Then, we do it all over again. Sometimes I wonder, how many ordinary mornings does one person experience in a lifetime, and how many of them do we actually remember? I walked into the kitchen. Well, calling it a kitchen might be a little generous. It's really just a small corner of my apartment. A tiny sink, a microwave, a kettle, a few shelves. Just enough space for one person. But somehow, I've grown to love it. It feels like mine. I filled the kettle with water and turned it on. While I waited, I opened the window. A cool breeze drifted into the room. It carried the smell of wet leaves and fresh air. Someone nearby was already making breakfast. I could smell toasted bread. For a moment, I forgot about work. I simply stood there, watching the trees move gently in the morning wind. Sometimes, those quiet moments last only a few seconds, but they stay in my memory much longer than busy ones. The kettle clicked. I poured hot water into my favorite mug. It wasn't expensive. Actually, it had a tiny crack near the handle. I almost threw it away once, but every morning I reached for the same mug. Funny, isn't it? Some things don't have to be perfect to become our favorites. I added a spoonful of instant coffee, then another half spoon. Monday deserves a little extra coffee. At least, that's what I told myself. I wrapped both hands around the warm mug. The heat slowly reached my fingers. The first sip was slightly bitter. The second was better. By the third sip, I finally felt awake. Or maybe I simply convinced myself that I was. I checked my phone, 3 emails, 12 unread messages, a weather notification, a sale from an online shopping app. Nothing important. Yet somehow, seeing so many notifications before 7 in the morning already made me feel behind. It's strange. The day hadn't even started, but I already felt like I was trying to catch up. As I finished my coffee, I looked around my apartment. The blanket on my bed was still messy. There was a plate in the sink from last night. A book lay open on the sofa. My bag was waiting by the door. Everything looked ordinary, exactly as I had left it yesterday. Life doesn't usually change overnight. It changes quietly, one ordinary morning after another. Before leaving, I stood by the door for a moment. My hand rested on the doorknob. I took one slow, deep breath. I can do this. I wasn't trying to convince the world. I was trying to convince myself. Sometimes, that's enough. I picked up my bag, locked the door behind me, and stepped into another Monday, not knowing that today would leave me with something to think about. By the time I reached the elevator, my coffee was gone. Only the warmth of the mug remained in my hands. I locked my apartment door one last time, placed the key in my bag, and stepped outside. The morning air felt cooler than I expected. It must have rained during the night. The sidewalks were still slightly wet, and tiny puddles reflected the pale morning sky. I always like mornings after the rain. Everything feels clean. As if the city has quietly washed away yesterday's worries, I looked at my watch, 7:32. Not late, but not exactly early either. If I missed the next bus, I'd probably arrive at the office just before my morning meeting. I really didn't want to rush today, so I walked a little faster. The streets were already busy. Motorbikes flowed like water. People crossed the road with surprising confidence. A delivery driver balanced 3 large boxes on the back of his motorcycle. Someone carried a bouquet of fresh flowers. A woman in a white shirt hurried past me while talking on the phone. Everyone seemed to be going somewhere important. Sometimes I wonder, when did we all become so busy? Did life slowly become this fast, or did we simply stop noticing? As I reached the bus stop, I saw the bus turning the corner. Oh no. Without thinking, I started running. Not a graceful run, more like a slightly desperate jog with a backpack bouncing behind me. I must have looked ridiculous. Luckily, the driver saw me. He smiled, waited for a second, and opened the door. "Good morning," I smiled back. "Thank you." Sometimes, a stranger's kindness can improve your mood more than they realize. The bus wasn't full yet. I found a seat near the window. It's always my favorite spot, not because the view is amazing, but because I like watching the world move without having to be part of it. For 20 minutes, I don't have to answer emails. I don't have to finish reports. I don't have to make decisions. I can simply observe. The bus pulled away from the curb. Buildings slowly passed by. Coffee shops were opening their doors. A bakery had already placed fresh bread in its display window. Even through the closed bus window, I imagined I could smell it. Warm, sweet, comforting. Across from me, an elderly man held a small paper bag on his lap. Every few minutes he looked inside, just to make sure it was still there. I couldn't see what was in it. Maybe medicine, maybe breakfast, maybe something he had bought for someone he loved. I smiled to myself. Isn't it interesting how our minds create stories about people we'll probably never meet? A few seats away, a little girl sat beside her mother. She wore a bright yellow raincoat, even though the rain had already stopped. Her legs were too short to touch the floor, so they swung back and forth as she hummed a song I didn't recognize. Suddenly, she looked straight at me. Our eyes met. Then, she smiled. Not the polite smile adults give each other. A real smile. The kind that asks for nothing. Without thinking, I smiled back. For the next few seconds, nothing else seemed to matter. Emails could wait, deadlines could wait, even Monday could wait. When the girl got off the bus, she waved at me. I waved back. Then she disappeared into the crowd, holding her mother's hand. It's funny. Some people stay in our lives for years, yet leave almost no memories. Others appear for less than a minute, and somehow, we remember them all day. The bus continued downtown. More passengers climbed aboard. The seats slowly filled. The quiet morning turned into the familiar sound of city life. Phones ringing, headphones leaking music, someone coughing, someone laughing, someone apologizing after accidentally stepping on another person's shoe. Little moments, nothing extraordinary, yet together, they sounded like a city waking up. I took out my phone. Out of habit, I opened my work email. 4 new messages, then 6, then another notification. I sighed. For a moment, I thought about reading them. Instead, I locked my phone and slipped it back into my bag. Those emails would still be there 20 minutes later. But this morning, this peaceful bus ride wouldn't. Sometimes, we give our attention away too quickly, as if everything is urgent, as if every notification deserves a piece of us. Maybe it doesn't. The bus stopped at a red light. Outside, I noticed a small flower shop. An old woman stood carefully arranging sunflowers in a bucket of water. She wasn't in a hurry. She moved slowly, gently, almost like she was having a conversation with each flower. Cars rushed past her. Motorbikes filled the street. People hurried to work. But she stayed exactly where she was, completely focused on what she was doing. I couldn't stop watching her. Maybe peace isn't something we find. Maybe it's something we choose, even on a busy Monday morning. The traffic light turned green. The bus moved again. The flower shop disappeared behind us, but the image stayed with me. I didn't know why. Not yet. Sometimes, a moment doesn't make sense until much later. A gentle voice came through the speakers. Next stop. My office was only 2 stops away. I straightened my shirt, adjusted the strap of my backpack, took one last deep breath. The quiet part of my day was almost over. In a few minutes, I'd walk through those glass office doors, smile at my coworkers, say, "Good morning," and begin another ordinary workday. At least, that's what I thought. The bus stopped in front of my office building. I stepped outside and looked up. The building wasn't beautiful, just a tall glass office tower, like hundreds of others in the city. Every morning, people walked through the same revolving doors, holding coffee cups, wearing name tags, and carrying laptops. Some looked energetic, some looked sleepy, some were already talking about meetings. Everyone had somewhere to be, and so did I. The security guard at the entrance smiled when he saw me. "Good morning, Tracy." "Good morning," I smiled back. He greeted every employee the same way, every single morning, rain or sunshine, Monday or Friday. I wondered if anyone had ever thanked him for remembering all our names. The elevator was crowded. No one spoke. A few people checked their phones. Someone adjusted their tie. Someone yawned quietly. The elevator doors closed, and for a few seconds, all I could hear was the soft humming of the machine. It's funny how elevators are always full of people, and somehow still feel lonely. The doors opened on the 8th floor. As soon as I stepped out, I heard the familiar sounds of the office. The clicking of keyboards, the ringing of phones, the low hum of conversations, the coffee machine making another cup. It sounded exactly like yesterday, and probably exactly like tomorrow. "Morning, Tracy." I turned around. It was Emily. She worked at the desk next to mine. Emily always arrived early. Always. I had never seen her rush into the office. I had never seen her forget anything. Some people have that kind of calm energy, the kind that makes you wonder, how do they do it? "Did you have a good weekend?" she asked. "It was nice." "What did you do?" I laughed softly. "Honestly, not much," Emily smiled. "Sometimes doing nothing is the best weekend." "I think you're right." She picked up her coffee. "I watched movies for 2 days." "That sounds perfect." It was. We both laughed. It was a simple conversation, maybe 30 seconds, but somehow it made the morning feel a little lighter. I placed my bag under my desk and turned on my computer. The screen lit up, the company logo appeared. Then, my inbox, 37 unread emails. I blinked. Were there always this many? I whispered to myself. No one answered. Of course not. Everyone was too busy reading their own emails. I took a sip of water, opened the first message, and began working. Reply, archive, reply, delete, forward, reply again. It felt almost automatic. Sometimes my fingers typed before my brain had fully caught up. Have you ever done something so many times that your body remembered it better than your mind? 9 o'clock, a message appeared on my screen. Morning meeting, conference room B. I grabbed my notebook and followed everyone else. Conference room B looked exactly like every conference room. White walls, a long table, a large television screen, a few green plants in the corner, trying their best to make the room feel alive. Our manager, Ms. Carter, walked in carrying a tablet. She wasn't the kind of boss people feared. She rarely raised her voice. She listened carefully. She remembered birthdays, and somehow that made me want to do a good job even more. Not because I was afraid, but because I didn't want to disappoint her. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, she smiled. I'll keep today's meeting short. Everyone smiled a little wider. Short meetings are everyone's favorite meetings. She reviewed the schedule, a few deadlines, a new client, some changes to a project, nothing unexpected. Then she looked toward me. Tracy, yes? How's the Johnson report coming along? My heart skipped a beat, only for a second. It's almost finished, she nodded. Great. Whenever you're ready, send it to me this afternoon. No problem. The conversation lasted less than 10 seconds. She wasn't upset. She wasn't criticizing me. She simply asked a question. Yet, I still felt a tiny knot in my stomach. Why? I wasn't sure. Maybe because I always wanted everything to be perfect before anyone saw it. The meeting ended. People stood up, stretching their backs, chatting quietly as they walked out. I stayed behind for a moment, looking at my notebook. The page was full of neat handwriting, deadlines, tasks, reminders. Every line represented something I needed to do. I suddenly realized I had written down what everyone expected from me, but nowhere on that page had I written what I expected from myself. Back at my desk, I opened the Johnson report. Just one more section, then I'd be done. I read the same paragraph twice, 3 times. Something felt off. Not because the report was wrong, because I couldn't concentrate. My eyes were looking at the words, but my thoughts were somewhere else. At that exact moment, the office printer made a loud, unhappy noise. Then, silence. A second later, someone sighed dramatically. "Oh no, not again." The entire office laughed, even Miss Carter. Emily leaned over and whispered, "I think that printer hates Mondays more than we do." I couldn't help laughing. Maybe it needs coffee too. For a brief moment, everyone stopped thinking about deadlines, stopped thinking about reports, stopped thinking about work, all because an old printer decided it had had enough. It's strange, isn't it? Sometimes the smallest interruptions become the best part of the morning. I looked at the clock. 10:17 a.m. The day wasn't even halfway through, and yet I already felt like I'd been awake for much longer. I leaned back in my chair, wrapped both hands around my mug, and quietly watched the steam rise from my coffee. It reminded me of the flower shop I had seen on the way to work. The old woman arranging sunflowers. She had looked completely present, completely focused. While I had spent the entire morning thinking about the next email, the next meeting, the next deadline, maybe, without realizing it, I had stopped noticing the moment I was already living. When the clock finally reached 12:30, someone stood up and stretched. Another person closed their laptop with a loud sigh. Then, almost at the same time, chairs began to move. Conversations slowly became louder. The office suddenly felt lighter. Lunch break had finally arrived. Emily looked over at me. "Coming?" I smiled. Of course. I saved my work, closed my laptop, and grabbed my phone. For the next hour, deadlines could wait. At least, that was the idea. Our office wasn't far from a small shopping center. There were plenty of places to eat. A noodle shop, a sushi restaurant, a bakery, a salad bar, even a tiny cafe that always smelled like fresh butter and cinnamon. Every Monday, someone would ask the same question. "So, what should we eat today?" And every Monday, no one seemed to know the answer. After 5 minutes of walking in circles, we somehow ended up at the same little Vietnamese restaurant again. Emily laughed. "I guess we're creatures of habit." "I guess we are." The owner greeted us with a warm smile. "Welcome back." I wondered how many times she had said those words today. Probably dozens. Yet somehow, she still sounded sincere. We found a table near the window. The restaurant wasn't quiet, but it wasn't noisy either. There was the gentle sound of bowls and chopsticks, people chatting, soft music playing in the background, and the comforting smell of hot soup. For the first time that morning, I felt my shoulders relax. As we waited for our food, the conversation drifted from one topic to another. Someone talked about a new television series. Someone complained about the traffic. Someone else showed pictures from a weekend trip to the beach. Everyone leaned closer to look. The water was bright blue. The sky looked perfect. Emily smiled. "That looks amazing." "It was," our coworker replied. "I didn't want to come back." "I don't blame you." Neither did I. A few minutes later, another coworker quietly placed her phone on the table. On the screen was a picture of a tiny baby. "My nephew," she said proudly. "He was born yesterday." The whole table smiled. People passed the phone around, admiring the little face, the tiny fingers, the sleepy eyes. For a moment, everyone forgot about work. It was amazing how one small photo could change the mood of an entire table. Then someone looked at me. "What about you, Tracy?" I looked up. Did you do anything interesting this weekend?" I smiled politely. I searched for an answer. I cleaned my apartment, did laundry, bought groceries, watched half a movie, called my parents, went to bed early. Nothing was wrong with any of those things, but somehow, they didn't feel like stories worth telling. So I simply said, "Nothing special." No one seemed disappointed. The conversation moved on. I quietly took a sip of my soup. The broth was warm, comforting, simple. As I looked around the table, I realized something. Everyone was smiling. Everyone was laughing. Everyone looked fine. But appearances can be very convincing. The coworker who had gone to the beach had mentioned last week that she was thinking about leaving the company. Emily, who always smiled, often stayed late to finish other people's work. The coworker with the newborn nephew had been traveling every weekend to help care for her aging parents. I knew these things because sometimes, between meetings and deadlines, people quietly shared little pieces of their lives, never all at once. I think that's something we often forget. We see someone laughing and we assume they're happy. We see someone working hard and we assume they're doing fine. We see someone smiling and we stop asking questions. But life is rarely that simple. Sometimes, the happiest person in the room is carrying the heaviest heart. As I finished my lunch, I looked out the window. People continued walking past the restaurant. Some were holding umbrellas, even though the rain had stopped. Some carried shopping bags. Others hurried across the street, checking the time every few seconds. Everyone seemed to be in the middle of something. A conversation, a decision, a worry, a dream. We never really know. Emily followed my gaze. "What are you looking at?" I smiled. "People." She laughed softly. "They're everywhere." I know. But sometimes I wonder, what kind of day they're having? Emily was quiet for a moment. Then she nodded. I think about that too. There was something comforting about knowing I wasn't the only one who wondered about strangers. When it was time to leave, I thanked the restaurant owner. She smiled again. "See you tomorrow." Tomorrow, such a simple word. It comes so easily, as if tomorrow is always guaranteed, as if we can always assume there will be another lunch break, another Monday, another ordinary day. Maybe that's why we don't pay much attention to today. We stepped back onto the sidewalk. The afternoon sun was brighter now. Cars moved slowly through traffic. A warm breeze brushed against my face. I took one deep breath. Lunch was over. Emails were waiting. The Johnson report was still unfinished. The afternoon would probably pass just as quickly as the morning had. But before walking back into the office, I looked up at the blue sky for just a few seconds. No phone, no notifications, no conversations, just the sky. Sometimes, a few quiet seconds are enough to remind us that life is happening outside the office too. The afternoon always feels different. The energy is quieter. The conversations become shorter. Even the office lights seem a little softer, though I know they haven't changed at all. Maybe it's just my eyes getting tired, or maybe it's my mind. When I sat back down at my desk, I looked at the clock, 1:27 p.m. Only 27 minutes had passed since lunch. Somehow, it felt impossible. I could have sworn an entire afternoon had gone by. I opened the Johnson report again. The blinking cursor waited patiently, as if it had all the time in the world. I read another paragraph, corrected a sentence, changed one word, deleted it, typed the original word again. Have you ever done that? Spent 2 minutes deciding between two words that meant almost the same thing. Sometimes, I think perfection is just another way of slowing ourselves down. The office was unusually quiet. I could hear fingers tapping on keyboards, the soft buzz of the air conditioner, a phone vibrating somewhere nearby, someone quietly stirring sugar into a cup of coffee. Tiny sounds, the kind you only notice when everything else becomes still. Around 2 o'clock, Emily stood beside my desk. Coffee? I looked up. I probably shouldn't. She smiled. So that's a yes? I laughed. I guess it is. The coffee machine was at the end of the hallway. Nothing fancy. Just one of those machines that promised 10 different drinks, but somehow they all tasted almost the same. Emily pressed a few buttons. What are you having? The usual. Black coffee? I nodded. Still trying to convince yourself you like it? I think I've convinced myself. I'm not so sure. We both laughed. As we waited, Emily leaned against the wall. Can I ask you something? Sure. Are you happy here? The question surprised me, not because it was difficult, because no one had asked me that in a long time. I didn't answer right away. Instead, I watched the coffee slowly fill my cup. Dark, hot, quiet. Finally, I said, I don't know. Emily nodded, as if she understood. I've been asking myself the same question. Neither of us spoke for a while. Sometimes, silence isn't awkward. Sometimes, it's honest. On the way back, Emily smiled. Maybe we're just tired. Maybe. Or maybe we need a vacation. I laughed. I definitely need one. So do I. Then she walked back to her desk, and the conversation ended, but her question didn't. Are you happy here? The words stayed with me long after she had gone. Not because I hated my job. I didn't. Not because I wanted to quit. At least, I didn't think so. The truth was harder to explain. I wasn't unhappy. I just wasn't excited anymore. Every day looked familiar. Every week passed quickly. Monday became Friday. Friday became Monday again. Months disappeared without asking for permission. Sometimes I would look at the calendar and wonder, when did it become August, or October, or another year? Life wasn't moving fast. I was. So fast, in fact, that I had stopped noticing it. At exactly 3 o'clock, I looked up from my computer. The office hadn't changed. Emily was typing. Someone was on a phone call. The printer, miraculously, was behaving itself. Outside, the sun still shone through the windows. Everything was normal. Perfectly normal. And somehow, that frightened me. Not because normal is bad. Normal can be peaceful. Normal can be safe. But I suddenly wondered, what if I kept living the same Monday over and over, without ever realizing it? What if one day I woke up and 10 years had passed? Would I remember these days? Or would they all blend together, like pages, with the same story written on them? My thoughts were interrupted by a notification on my screen. Meeting moved to Thursday. I clicked OK. Then another notification appeared. New email received. Then another. Then another. I closed them all. For the first time that day, I didn't want to read another email. I simply stared at my own reflection in the dark corner of my computer screen. It looked familiar, but strangely, it didn't feel like me. I remembered something my father once told me. When you were little, you couldn't wait to grow up. He laughed when he said it. You thought adults could do anything they wanted. Back then, I believed him. I imagined adulthood as complete freedom. No homework, no bedtime, no one telling me what to do. I couldn't wait. Now, sitting at my desk on an ordinary Monday afternoon, I smiled to myself. Growing up wasn't exactly what I imagined. Freedom came with responsibility. Dreams came with bills. Confidence came with uncertainty. And sometimes, being an adult simply meant showing up, even when you didn't feel like it. At 3:18, I finally closed my eyes for just a second. Not to sleep, just to rest. I took one slow breath in, then another. When I opened my eyes again, nothing around me had changed. The emails were still there. The report still needed to be finished. The office sounded exactly the same, but something inside me felt slightly quieter. Not fixed, just quieter. Maybe that's enough for one Monday afternoon. I picked up my keyboard again, placed my fingers on the keys, and continued writing, one sentence at a time, one paragraph at a time, one ordinary moment at a time. At 5:58, I looked at the clock for what felt like the 100th time that day. 2 more minutes. The office was still busy, but something had already changed. People had started saving their work, closing notebooks, packing their bags, stretching their shoulders. The quiet excitement of going home was slowly filling the room. At exactly 6, someone stood up and smiled. "See you tomorrow." Another voice answered, "Have a good evening." Soon, those words echoed across the office. One by one, people disappeared through the glass doors. Their desks became empty. Their computer screens turned black. The office, which had felt so alive all day, suddenly became very quiet. I shut down my computer and watched the screen fade to black. For a brief moment, I could see my reflection. I smiled at it, not because I was especially happy, just because the workday was over. Sometimes, that's enough. As I walked toward the elevator, Emily caught up with me. "So," she said, "any plans tonight?" I thought for a moment. "Not really. Dinner, laundry, maybe read a little." She laughed. "You're more responsible than I am." "I don't know about that. What about you?" "I'm ordering pizza, watching a terrible reality show, and pretending tomorrow doesn't exist." I laughed. "That actually sounds wonderful." "It is." The elevator doors opened. We stepped inside. Just like this morning, it was full of people. But this time, everyone looked different. Not because they had changed, because they looked relieved. Outside, the air was warmer. The streets were alive. Office workers poured onto the sidewalks. Some walked quickly, eager to get home. Others stopped at food stalls, already thinking about dinner. The city felt softer in the evening, less hurried, more human. I decided not to take the bus. It wasn't too far, and walking suddenly felt like exactly what I needed. No schedule, no notifications, no meetings, just my own footsteps. The sky had begun to change. The bright blue of the afternoon slowly melted into shades of gold and orange. The glass buildings reflected the sunset, making them look warmer than they ever did in the morning. I slowed my pace, not because I was tired, because I didn't want to miss it. It's strange. The sunset happens every day, yet somehow I forget to look at it. How many beautiful evenings have I walked past without noticing? Probably more than I'd like to admit. A cyclist passed me, his little daughter sitting in the child seat behind him. She stretched her arms toward the sky and laughed at absolutely nothing. Her father laughed too, even though he probably had a long day at work. For a few seconds, their laughter floated through the air. Then they disappeared around the corner. I found myself smiling again. Children have a way of reminding adults that joy doesn't always need a reason. A few blocks later, I saw the flower shop again. The same little shop I had noticed this morning through the bus window. The old woman was still there. She was gently wrapping a bouquet of white lilies for a customer. Several of the sunflowers I had seen earlier were gone now. Only a few remained, standing quietly in their bucket. I stopped walking, just for a moment. She looked up and caught me watching. Instead of looking away, I smiled. She smiled back. Then, to my surprise, she lifted one sunflower and held it toward me. "Beautiful, isn't it?" I walked a little closer. "It really is." She nodded, carefully placing it back. "Flowers teach us something." I tilted my head. "What do they teach?" She chuckled softly. "They bloom. They brighten someone's day. Then they fade. but that doesn't make them any less beautiful. For a second, neither of us spoke. Cars continued passing behind me. People hurried along the sidewalk. But around that little flower shop, everything felt slower, almost peaceful. "Do you sell many flowers on Mondays?" I asked. She smiled. "Enough." Then she looked at the bouquet she had just finished wrapping. "People think flowers are only for celebrations." She paused. "But sometimes, ordinary days deserve flowers too." I thanked her, wished her a good evening, and continued walking. Her words stayed with me. Ordinary days deserve flowers too. I repeated the sentence quietly in my mind once, then again. A few minutes later, I stopped at the small convenience store near my apartment. The automatic doors slid open with their familiar little chime. Cool air rushed toward me. The store looked exactly as it always did. Bright lights, neatly arranged shelves, soft music playing overhead. I picked up a carton of milk, a loaf of bread, a few eggs, and some instant noodles. Then, almost without thinking, I reached for a small chocolate bar. I smiled to myself. I don't really need this, but I bought it anyway. Maybe not because I wanted chocolate. Maybe because after an ordinary Monday, I wanted to bring home one tiny thing that felt like a reward. When I stepped back outside, the sky was almost dark. The first evening stars were beginning to appear. My apartment building was only a few minutes away. I shifted the grocery bag from one hand to the other and took a slow, deep breath. For the first time all day, I realized I wasn't thinking about work. Not the report, not the emails, not tomorrow's meeting. Just this walk, this evening, this quiet moment. And somehow, it felt enough. I unlocked the front door to my apartment building and stepped inside home. Such a small word, only 4 letters. But after a long Monday, it can feel like the most comforting place in the world. By the time I got home, the sky had turned completely dark. The city outside my window still glowed with thousands of tiny lights. Cars continued moving. People were still walking home. Some restaurants were just beginning their busiest hours. Even though my workday was over, the city wasn't ready to rest. Not yet. I placed my groceries on the kitchen counter, took off my shoes, and let out a long, quiet sigh. Home always has its own sound, or maybe its own silence. No ringing phones, no office conversations, no keyboards clicking, just me. I changed into my favorite oversized sweater, tied my hair up again, and washed my face. The cool water felt refreshing, as if it was washing away not only the dust of the day, but also the invisible weight I had been carrying since morning. Dinner was simple. Instant noodles, an egg, and the chocolate bar I had bought on the way home. Not exactly a balanced meal, but somehow it tasted better than I expected. Maybe food isn't only about flavor. Maybe it's also about finally allowing yourself to slow down. While I ate, I didn't turn on the television. I didn't play a podcast. I didn't scroll through my phone. The apartment was quiet. At first, the silence felt unfamiliar, almost uncomfortable. I realized how often I filled every empty moment with noise, music, videos, messages, anything except silence. After dinner, I washed my bowl and placed it carefully on the drying rack. Then I made myself a cup of chamomile tea. The steam rose gently into the warm light above my table. Without thinking, I smiled. This was my favorite part of the day, not because anything exciting happened, but because no one expected anything from me anymore. For the next few hours, I didn't have to answer emails. I didn't have to solve problems. I didn't have to pretend I had everything under control. I walked over to the small desk beside my window. A notebook was already waiting there. Its cover was a little worn. Some pages were folded. A few corners were bent. It wasn't beautiful, but it had been with me for a long time. I picked up my pen. For a few seconds, I didn't write anything. I simply looked at the blank page. Sometimes, the hardest part of writing isn't finding the right words. It's being honest enough to write them. I wrote the date, Monday. Then, underneath it, I wrote one simple sentence. Today was an ordinary day. I looked at it for a moment, then I smiled and quietly crossed out the word ordinary. Instead, I wrote, today was a meaningful day. Nothing extraordinary had happened. No promotion, no celebration, no exciting adventure. So why did it feel meaningful? I thought about the little girl on the bus. She smiled at a stranger without expecting anything back. I thought about the security guard who greeted everyone by name every single morning. I thought about Emily, who asked me a question I hadn't asked myself in a very long time. Are you happy here? I still didn't know the answer, and maybe that was okay. Not every question needs an immediate answer. Some questions simply ask us to pay attention. Then, I remembered the old woman at the flower shop. Ordinary days deserve flowers too. I repeated her words quietly to myself. They sounded even more beautiful now than they had on the sidewalk. I looked around my apartment. The blanket was still a little messy. There was a grocery receipt in the counter. My coffee mug from this morning was still sitting beside the sink. The book on the sofa was still open to the same page. Nothing had changed. Nothing had changed. And yet, something inside me did this. Morning, I woke up already thinking about everything I had to do. Tonight, I was thinking about everything I almost missed. The morning breeze, the smell of fresh bread, a child waving goodbye, a broken printer that made everyone laugh, lunch with coworkers, the sunset reflecting on glass buildings, a sunflower standing quietly outside a little flower shop. None of those moments were important on their own, but together they became the story of my day. Maybe that's what memories are. Not the biggest moments, not the loudest ones, but the small pieces our hearts quietly choose to keep. I closed my notebook for a moment and looked out the window. Across the street, I could see another apartment. Someone was watering their plants. A family was having dinner together. A student sat at a desk, still studying. A tiny dog waited patiently by the front door, its tail wagging every time footsteps passed. Everyone was living a completely different life, yet somehow we were all sharing the same evening, the same moon, the same sky. There was something comforting about that thought. I opened my notebook again and wrote one last sentence. Tomorrow will probably be another ordinary day. I paused, then I added, I hope I notice it this time. Before going to bed, I opened the window, just a little. The night air was cool and gentle. Somewhere in the distance, I heard a train, a motorcycle, someone laughing. The city was slowly growing quieter. So was I. If you're listening to this at the end of your own day, I hope you'll think about one small moment that made today yours. It doesn't have to be extraordinary. Maybe it was your first sip of coffee, a message from a friend, a stranger holding the door open, the color of the evening sky, or maybe it was simply the fact that you made it through today. Sometimes that's more than enough. Thank you for spending this Monday with me. I'll be here again tomorrow with another page from my diary. Until then, take care of yourself, sleep well, and don't forget, ordinary days deserve to be remembered too. Good night.